Imagine this scenario with me, my friend. There's a poor guy working at the airport. One day, circumstances force him into an impossible choice. Either let the biggest bomb in the country's history explode on one of the planes at the airport, or his fiancée, who's going to be his wife, dies. Which do you think he'll choose? That's exactly what we're going to find out in today's movie. It all starts with a mysterious man. Let's call him the Stranger. The Stranger shows up at a small shop owned by two people named Oleg and Yuri. He talks to Oleg, and from their conversation, we learn that the Stranger has come to pick up a suitcase from Oleg. We don't yet know what's inside this suitcase, but it's clearly something dangerous. After the Stranger takes the car keys for the vehicle holding the suitcase, Oleg suddenly collapses and dies. We realize that the Stranger poisoned him just by touching him. Then Yuri appears, and the Stranger shoots him in the head. He doesn't stop there. He sets fire to the whole place, grabs his things, and goes to the car Oleg told him about, making sure the suitcase is there. Then he drives off. The next day, or maybe right before the next day. By the way, my friend, have you liked, commented, and subscribed to the channel yet? No? Well, go for it. And don't forget to leave a nice comment and offer prayers for the prophet. Let's continue. The next day is Christmas Day. We're introduced to Ethan and his fiancée Nora, and we learn that both of them work at Los Angeles Airport. They leave home and head to the airport. When they arrive, Nora tells Ethan that she knows he really doesn't like working there, and that his dream is to become a police officer. She reminds him that he applied for the police job before and failed, but insists he should apply again. He might succeed this time. Ethan doesn't say much in response, and they go their separate ways at work. Then we see Ethan at his job. He's actually an airport security officer, specifically working at the metal detection gate. Right now, Ethan is attending a meeting with his supervisor, B, who tells everyone that today is going to be extra busy because it's Christmas. The airport will be crowded, so they need to stay alert. Afterward, another officer speaks to the group. His name is Lionel, and he's from the Los Angeles Police Department, not just standard airport security. Lionel explains that they're going to receive special pens that detect hidden lines or marks, which will help them catch forged tickets. There's been a big problem with forged tickets recently, so they need to stay vigilant. Once the meeting is over, everyone heads to their posts. Ethan goes to meet his longtime friend Jason, who works with him at the airport. Jason tells Ethan he really needs to talk to B about getting a promotion so he can marry Nora. Ethan agrees and goes to B to ask for that promotion. B, however, doesn't trust Ethan at all, so he says no. But Ethan refuses to give up and suggests that B give him a tough assignment to test him. If Ethan succeeds, B promotes him. If not, that's the end of it. B eventually agrees. He decides to swap Ethan and Jason's positions. Ethan will run the baggage scanner, the machine that checks luggage, taking Jason's place, while Jason goes to the metal detector gate. Ethan agrees, and that becomes the plan. He takes over the luggage scanner and sits next to a coworker named Dan. It's clear Ethan and Dan don't really get along. Meanwhile, a car pulls into the airport garage. Inside are a hacker, let's call him the hacker, and a guy named Jesse, who's tied up. Remember Jesse for later. The hacker manages to break into the airport's surveillance cameras and notices that Ethan, instead of Jason, is stationed at the baggage scanner. He immediately contacts the Stranger from the beginning of the film, and we find out they're working together. Their goal is to get that suitcase the Stranger picked up from Oleg and Yuri through airport security. Originally, they thought Jason would be manning the baggage scanner, so they sent people to Jason's house to kidnap his wife and kids, forcing him to let the suitcase through without question. But now that Ethan's on the scanner instead, the Stranger tells the hacker to have the men release Jason's family and go investigate Ethan, figure out everything they can about him. They do exactly that, and the hacker tells the Stranger whatever he learns about Ethan. Not long after that, Ethan's daughter comes up to him and hands him some kind of earpiece. Ethan then gets a text from an unknown number telling him to put the earpiece on. The moment he does, the Stranger starts talking to him. The Stranger tells Ethan there's a particular passenger with a suitcase full of prohibited materials, but doesn't specify what those materials are. He makes it clear that Ethan must let that suitcase pass, or else the Stranger will kill Nora, who's also working in the same airport. Panicked, Ethan agrees to do what the Stranger says. Ethan tries calling the police, but before anyone can answer, the hacker, watching through the cameras, warns the Stranger. The Stranger orders Ethan to hang up immediately, put his phone away in a drawer, and leave it there. Ethan has no choice but to obey. He still won't give up, so he tries calling the police from his smartwatch. The hacker notices this as well and warns the stranger, who forces Ethan to take off the watch and put it away too. Again, Ethan has no choice. Elsewhere, we meet an officer named Elena. She arrives at the crime scene where Oleg and Yuri were killed. Elena manages to find Oleg's wristwatch, which apparently has a voice recorder in it. She takes the watch to see what Oleg was recording. She brings it to a colleague named Harish, who starts decoding whatever audio is on it. Meanwhile, Ethan is still talking to the stranger. In that moment, Ethan spots the stranger at the airport and manages to figure out exactly where he is. So Ethan secretly passes a note to Lionel, the police officer, telling him about the stranger and asking Lionel to go arrest him. The hacker notices Ethan handing off the note, informs the stranger, and the stranger knocks into Lionel. During that scuffle, the stranger poisons Lionel by touch, and Lionel collapses and dies. The stranger quickly retrieves the note from Lionel's pocket and walks away. Then the stranger goes straight to Ethan and warns him that if he tries to tip off anyone else, he'll kill Nora without hesitation, and then leaves. Afterward, Ethan returns to the scanner area and finds Jason there, who explains that B told him to come back to his old post. Ethan calls the stranger in a panic, saying that he's been replaced. The stranger says Ethan has to figure out a way to get back on that machine, or Nora will be killed. Left with no choice, Ethan complies. Ethan heads to the break room, gets a cup of coffee, and secretly pours some liquor into it. Then he goes to Jason, pretends they're just chatting, and swaps Jason's coffee cup for the spiked one. After that, Ethan runs to B and tells him Jason is drinking on the job. B freaks out, goes to Jason, and makes him leave the scanner post. Thus, Ethan reclaims his spot at the baggage scanner. At this point, the stranger informs Ethan that someone named Mateo will soon arrive with the suitcase, and Ethan needs to let it through. Mateo shows up, puts his suitcase on Ethan's scanner, and Ethan sees, via the machine, some kind of chemicals, clearly explosives. Despite that, Ethan lets the suitcase go. Right after that, he rushes to the bathroom, where the stranger confronts him. Ethan demands to know what's in the suitcase, so the stranger reveals it's a Novichok 7 nerve gas bomb. The moment it spreads, it will kill everyone in its range. He explains that they're going to load this suitcase onto a certain plane, killing 250 passengers on board. The stranger adds that he's not doing this by choice, but he's working for some people who asked him to, so he has no other option. He tells Ethan that Mateo just has to board the plane with that suitcase, and once he's on, that's it. The plan will be complete. He threatens that if Ethan tries to stop Mateo in any way, he'll activate the bomb immediately, killing everyone in the airport instead of just the people on the plane. The stranger leaves Ethan with this ultimatum. We cut back to Elena, who learns from Harish that he's successfully decrypted Oleg's recordings, which include conversations with the stranger. From these recordings, Elena figures out that the stranger is bringing something dangerous, a bomb or something similar, to the airport. She wants to ground all flights immediately, but no one will agree because she doesn't have hard proof. Soon, a federal officer named John, supposedly from Homeland Security, shows up to help Elena with the case. Meanwhile, at the airport, B summons all security officers, including Ethan, and tells them they need to do a thorough search of all passengers. They have a few suspects who might be smuggling something dangerous. Ethan slyly adds Mateo to the list of suspects, so B detains Mateo to investigate. As soon as Ethan sees Mateo has been detained, he races off to find Nora and protect her, knowing this will mess up the stranger's plan and put her in danger. But Ethan discovers the hacker has a gun pointed at Nora. Terrified for her life, he backs off and gets another call from the stranger, who orders Ethan to meet him in the bathroom. In there, the stranger beats Ethan up, telling him he needs to fix the situation and get Mateo released. Ethan fights back, grabs the stranger's gun, and threatens him. But the stranger just smirks, activates the bomb, and tells Ethan he has to retrieve it from wherever B took it, or it will explode and kill everyone in the airport. Then he leaves. Ethan, now armed with the stranger's pistol, hurries over to B, who's in the process of searching Mateo's suitcase containing the bomb. Ethan holds B at gunpoint, and B is completely baffled by what's happening. The stranger demands through the earpiece that Ethan kill B to prevent him from raising the alarm, but Ethan refuses. In that moment, Mateo grabs a pen and stabs B in the neck. B collapses, bleeding out. Furious, Ethan almost attacks Mateo, But Mateo admits he's also being forced into this, just like Ethan, because the stranger and the hacker have kidnapped his friend Jesse. That's the same Jesse we saw earlier, the one tied up in the car. They threatened to kill Jesse if Mateo didn't cooperate. So Ethan decides to let Mateo be and tries to disarm the bomb according to the stranger's instructions. He succeeds in deactivating it. Then he and Mateo hide B's body. Dan shows up briefly but doesn't suspect anything. Ethan takes Mateo and the suitcase and heads off, trying to get Mateo onto the plane with the bomb as instructed. At the same time, Elena and John are on their way to the airport, but Harish calls Elena to tell her that John isn't really a federal officer at all. He's probably working with the criminal group. When confronted, John admits he works for the stranger, tries to kill Elena, and a fight breaks out. Elena manages to knock him around until the car flips over. She then shoots John dead, takes another car, and continues to the airport. Back at the airport, the stranger makes Jesse call Mateo and order him to kill Ethan, since the stranger wants Ethan out of the picture. Mateo asks Ethan for the gun, but Ethan notices something's off and dodges the shot. They start fighting, end up rolling onto the luggage conveyor belt, then stumble off again. Mateo chases Ethan, firing shots. Mateo doesn't realize the pistol he's using is cheap plastic, and it literally blows apart in his hand. A stray bullet ends up hitting Mateo and killing him. Ethan barely has time to catch his breath before the stranger shows up, shooting at him to grab the suitcase. In that split second, Ethan switches out the bomb suitcase for a slightly bigger suitcase, transferring the bomb into the larger bag. We'll see why in a moment. He hides the bomb suitcase in a specific spot, slips away, and the stranger picks up the smaller bag, thinking it still contains the bomb. He heads off to board the plane. Ethan then comes out of hiding and sends a message to his friend Eddie, asking him to protect Nora because someone's trying to kill her. Right at that moment, Elena arrives, intending to arrest Ethan to figure out what's going on. He punches her to stop her from arresting him, but he also tells her which plane the stranger is planning to board so she can take action. Then he rushes off to find Nora. At the same time, Nora is with Ethan's friend Eddie, trying to get to safety. The hacker suddenly shows up, intending to kill Nora, so she runs until she bumps into Ethan. The hacker tries to shoot them both, but out of nowhere, a bullet hits him. It's Jesse, Mateo's friend, who fires the shot. Jesse explains to Ethan that the plane the stranger was supposedly taking is actually a decoy. The real flight he's boarding is heading to Washington, D.C. On that flight is a congresswoman who's the real target of this operation because she opposed a certain law that affects the arms industry. The people behind this plot want her dead. Jesse knows all this from overhearing the hacker and the stranger's conversation. Ethan and Nora figure out which plane the stranger is really on. Ethan tells Nora to go to Elena and persuade her not to stop that flight. If the stranger realizes they're onto him, he'll detonate the bomb right there. Ethan plans to board the plane and disarm the bomb himself. Nora goes to Elena and convinces her to let the plane depart as normal so the stranger won't get suspicious. The stranger boards the plane with the congresswoman. He tries to store his suitcase above his seat, but discovers it won't fit because, remember, Ethan switched it with a bigger one. The flight crew takes the suitcase to the cargo storage area instead. Moments later, we see Ethan rush onto the plane just as it's taxiing on the runway and before it takes off. He sneaks into the cargo hold, searching for the suitcase with the bomb. He finds it, opens it, and attempts to deactivate it manually. Suddenly, the stranger arrives, having noticed via his device that the bomb's been deactivated. Ethan attacks him viciously, eventually shoving the stranger into a large fridge-like container, tossing the nerve gas capsule in there with him, and sealing it. The stranger inhales the gas and dies instantly, and the crisis is finally over. When it's all said and done, Ethan is relieved that he's managed to save everyone's lives. A year passes, and we see Ethan and Nora at the airport again, this time as travelers on vacation. We learn Ethan quit his airport job long ago and finally became a police officer, fulfilling the dream he'd always had. With that happy ending, the film comes to a close. Hope you enjoyed it, and that's all. Bye for now.